One Saturday when I was around 13, my uncle came around with his girlfriend and my two younger cousins. Our other two cousins were staying at the flat for the weekend, and a further younger female cousin had asked Mom if she could stay. This was a regular occurrence for us kids. The weekends and school holidays were free-for-alls, a constant stream of kids staying at one place or another, making makeshift beds with beanbags and floor cushions, or just crashing out on the floor with sleeping bags. Apart from my 5 cousins and I, my friend Jay was there. He too was at our flat every weekend, and his parents knew he would be okay. So, we all hung out together, had a sandwich and drink, and played on the Sega. Then Mom and my uncle's partner said we should all go for a walk. Everyone thought it was a great idea, so the 10 of us set out. The 3 adults decided that we should go to Donkey Woods, which is a bit of green wildland owned by the council, much like Heathland. As kids, we used to go over a lot in the spring, summer, and autumn on our own or with family. It was reasonably safe and kid-friendly, but still, it felt wild enough to make you feel adventurous and not in West London. We all walked the half-mile down the road from the flats to Donkey Woods, where we walked along the river until we got further into the woods. Eventually, Mom, my uncle, and his partner all sat down to have a cigarette. So, us 7 kids went exploring. As I've mentioned before, we all knew Donkey Woods really well, and were totally at ease and comfortable over there. We weren't expecting anything unusual or creepy at all. For us, it was just another mid-August late Saturday afternoon, and we were just messing around. My cousin T, my friend Jay, and I were all talking when suddenly the other 4 kids came running up. They were all out of breath and looked a little rattled. The 4 of them told us that they had seen something weird in one of the small clearings. They wouldn't tell us what, though. They just told us that we had to see for ourselves. We all thought it was just a major wind-up, but when we got to the clearing, our mood changed quickly. Not to fear, more like a sense of unsettling apprehension. In the middle of the clearing were 3 small tents in a rough triangle. In the middle of the tents was a small, still smoldering fire. Around the edge of the clearing were several small dead birds. The whole scene was very unnatural. I felt a distinct drop in the temperature. It was most likely my imagination, but it was still quite evident. Now, the rough sleepers of the area did use Donkey Woods as a base, but not in that particular place of the woods. It was too close to the main road, and the homeless people avoided harassment and abuse from certain unpleasant individuals by going further into the woods to prevent any of that. The homeless people who lived over in Donkey Woods also didn't use tents. They would make shelters from pieces of wood and plastic sheeting. Donkey Woods is not a place where people go camping recreationally. We felt there was something very strange about the scene in this clearing. I told the 4 younger ones to go and get the adults. While they were gone, me, Jay, and T did not move. T, who was and still is as tough as nails, was completely colorless. You couldn't see her freckles at all. I didn't even move my wheelchair around the area as I normally would have done. I just kept saying, "What the fuck?" When the adults came back with the other kids, they were clearly unnerved by the odd scene as much as we were. It was soon agreed on by everyone that we should leave the clearing and Donkey Woods immediately. The most creepy part of this incident was the next morning. My uncle went to see my other uncle, and together they went over to Donkey Woods to look around more. They went to the clearing, but there was nothing there. Not even marks in the ground from the tent poles. There was no sign of the fire, and there were no dead birds. Back in 2018, me and my dad went to explore an abandoned manor house. When we got there, we climbed over the gate. To our right, there was nothing but fields. To our left was the back of a large manor house. Lights were on in almost every room. Cars were parked at the back. It was a very well-lit, clean, beautiful, and clearly lived-in home. We snuck past to find the abandoned manor, thinking it must have been up ahead, but we didn't find any other structure. We crept back the same way we came and back over the gate, out of luck. As we walked down the road a couple of seconds, we noticed the front of the abandoned manor we were looking for. We proceeded to explore the location. After exploring a clearly abandoned old derelict building, we then realized as we came out the back and down the lane that the same gate we jumped over previously blocked our path. What we saw earlier was in fact the same manor. There was nothing to the left or right of the abandoned manor, just fields on all sides. To this day, we know what we saw. We must have seen how the manor looked when it was lived in. When we went around the front, it was the present-day manor, old and abandoned. This happened all the way back in 2017. I was camping with my friend. He had a huge farmland surrounded by forests. We were outside in front of the farmhouse in a tent. He was asleep, but me, always having insomnia, I was wide awake. All of a sudden, I hear loud, slow footsteps coming from out of the forest, coming over to the direction of the tent. This terrified me because I didn't know what it was. A bear? A deer? A person? No clue. So I was waiting for the footsteps to stop outside the tent. I prepared myself for the absolute worst. The footsteps moved past the tent. After hearing those slow, loud, methodical footsteps come out from the woods and then go past us, curiosity started to eat away at me. When I was a kid, I was stupid. I unzipped the tent and quietly peeked my head out to see if I could see anything. I looked all around the tree line, the house, everywhere. I couldn't find the source of the footsteps. I was just about to put my head back inside when I spotted something that didn't make sense. Behind the farmhouse to the right is the actual farm. And next to this farm, a pole. I saw what looked like a 30-foot tall grayish-silver pole standing next to this farm. It was shiny, glistening in the moonlight. I studied this weird structure up and down, confused, because I knew damn well I would have noticed this 30-foot tall pole bizarrely placed inches away from the farm earlier when it was daytime. But I didn't. After looking at this strange object really hard, I realized that the pole had arms and legs. They looked like rods, perfectly straight, symmetrical in proportion with its size and stature. It looked so smooth and round. It looked like it was stretched out. I don't know how to explain it. I then realized that it was doing something. It was spinning in a circle, ever so slowly. I was dumbfounded. I had no idea what I could possibly be looking at. All of a sudden, this 30-foot tall, shining, spinning, pole-like humanoid thing, took an uncomfortably long step back into the woods, still spinning ever so slowly, still glistening and shining in the moonlight. I had no idea how to react. I was at a complete loss for words. I just kind of went back into the tent and laid on my back until the sun came up. I had no sleep at all. After that day, I never hung out with my friend at that farm again. I don't know what it was. Trick of the eye? A black stick man? Your guess is as good as mine. A few summers back, I worked at a camp that was nearly 100 years old. The camp served adults and kids with varying levels of ability of all ages. It was really the highlight of many of the campers' lives. Campers and workers alike joked the place was haunted. I thought it was one of those funny camp legends to mess with the campers and share around the fire. As a camp leader, I had my own room in an old cabin. I shared a bathroom with one other leader who lived on the other separate half of the cabin. One night, I was up late dealing with a camper who was having a meltdown. Around midnight, I had finally gotten her to sleep. I was walking back to my own cabin when thunder roared. I sprinted the rest of the way, and as soon as I hit the door, it started to pour. I realized at that moment that I still had my walkie-talkie on me. Usually, we charged them in the main office at night, but I decided to not run to the storm, so I turned the walkie-talkie off and set it on my dresser. Shortly after that, I went to bed. I awoke at around 3 a.m. to what felt like someone poking my leg. I was really confused by the sensation. I opened my eyes and looked down at my leg under the sheet where I had felt the poke. I saw nothing. I tried to go back to sleep, but a few seconds later I felt it more aggressively and on a larger scale, as if a whole hand had wrapped around my calf. I sat up in fear. As I sat up, my walkie-talkie across the room lit up and beeped. Something that could only happen if someone physically turned the side dial and pressed a button. The walkie-talkie stayed on. I was paralyzed with fear. Eventually, I got up and turned it back off and turned on the room's lights. I checked, and no one was in my room or under my bed or in my closet. There were no objects that could have caused the poking. To this day, it still makes me feel tight-chested thinking about it.